Welcome into another edition of Philadelphia Eagles Now. My name is Chase Sr. No matter where you are, how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. Coming up, going to take questions from our real ones and our loyal subscribers. We're talking all things Philadelphia Eagles, and there are a lot of topics to dive into. There are a lot of things to hit on and discuss, so let's get to it and waste no time. Arav gets us started with this one. Chase Sr., Arav, I got some questions. Do you think that we trade A.J. Brown for some first-round picks in June? I think we can do some stuff that can help us. So I know that the A.J. Brown trade buzz has run rampant going all the way back to last year. Jeremy Fowler had that report last week that some people around the NFL have believed since week 3, since October of last year, that A.J. Brown could get dealt. And the last 2 years, he has certainly made his unhappiness be known. But if I'm the Eagles, I want to find any way to make A.J. Brown happy. This is a special player. He is a game changer. Howie Roseman is always in the business of bringing in special players. He has meant so much to this Philadelphia Eagles offense over time. He has 4 straight years of more than 1,000 yards. In 2022, 2023, and in 2024, he was an all-pro in this league. There has not been a single player in the history of the Philadelphia Eagles who has had 4 straight years of more than 1,000 yards. It's incredible what he's been able to accomplish. And I think A.J. Brown is frustrated for a couple of reasons. He's frustrated at the scheme. He's frustrated by some of his lack of production. I've watched so many of the top offensive coordinators and how they call the game of football, how they design plays, some of the schematic elements of the schemes that they run. There is no way that A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith can't put up Puka Nacua-like numbers, Jackson Smith and Jigba-like numbers. And I imagine that Smitty and AJ are watching some tape and they're seeing what these wide receivers are doing, and they think the same thing. So when you're a professional athlete, you have a finite amount of time to capitalize on your athletic career because your athletic prime for when you're playing at a high level like the NFL, it only lasts so long. So AJ is now in his late 20s. He's probably feeling pressure. He's a very competitive guy. He wants to be an all-time great. He feels as though, whether it be the quarterback play at times, the play calling, the scheme, the OC, it's impacted his overall career. Now, I still think that A.J. Brown is on a Hall of Fame trajectory, but I can also see where he's coming from. I wish that at times he wouldn't put it out on social media and blast his quarterback and criticize his current OC. And sometimes some of these subtle jabs, it's not the way that I would go about things. And I also think that sometimes A.J. Brown is a very misunderstood person. But when you're in his shoes, you can see his point of view. As far as the Eagles getting a couple first-round picks back, I don't think this is a hot take at all. I don't think A.J. Brown gets you 1 first-round pick. He's an older wide receiver in his late 20s. Yes, he's still playing at an elite level, but his average yards of separation this past year was lower. That could be a scheme and a play design thing. But I think that in watching him, the lack of explosiveness at times did show. He could still beat you deep. He could still pick up yards after the catch and break some tackles. But I think he's lost maybe just a slight step, but a little bit of a step. And at that price tag, at that age, with also some of the soft tissue injuries that we've seen over the last couple of years, I don't think you get back a 1 for him. Definitely not multiple ones. I think maybe you get a second-round pick and or a third-round pick back for A.J. Brown. So because of that, bring in a new OC. Bring in somebody who can convince A.J., I'm going to get you open and scheme you open and do some of the things that some of these other great coordinators are doing. Then you appease A.J., you get him happy, and if he's putting up numbers and the Eagles are winning, it's a win-win. Outdoor Creations with the $2 super chat here. A.J. Brown draft replacements. It's a good question here. So the top wide receiver prospects in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft, This could change and tinker and alter a little bit with what happens at the NFL Combine at the end of February going into March, but these are the consensus top 5 as of right now. You have Jordan Tyson out of Arizona State, Carnell Tate out of Ohio State, Mekhi Lemon out of USC, more of a slot guy, and kind of reminds me of Jackson Smith and Jigba, but Nick Saban said he was one of the more impressive players he watched in all of college football. You have Denzel Boston out of Washington, and then Casey Concepcion out of Texas A&M, who is kind of that bigger-bodied wide receiver who can pick up yards after the catch. He might be a second-round pick. Boston might be a second-round pick. I think those 3 other wide receivers, Tyson, Tate, Lemon, I think they go in the first round. Now, nowadays in the NFL, I do think that you can find some really talented wide receivers in the NFL draft. But with where wide receiver will be on the pecking order for the Eagles' needs, what if Lane Johnson retires? In general, what if Howie Roseman wants to improve this offensive line? He has shown he'll invest in the trenches early in the NFL draft. It's part of the reason why the Eagles have been such a good team of late. And so he might use like a first-round pick on a Lane Johnson replacement. And I think that would be more important than drafting a wide receiver in the first round. Again, a lot of things are going to change here in the lead up to the draft. A lot of time to figure it out. Draft coming up at the end of April. Bam. Do you think that we trade up for Kenyon Sadiq, or maybe we sit and we get him at 23? So Kenyon Sadiq is the uber-talented tight end out of Oregon. He's a little bit smaller as far as his height, but he is an excellent athlete. He runs very well. He's very physical in picking up yards after the catch. He could be a really fun red zone target, especially with how the Eagles used Dallas Goedert this past year on some of those bubble screens and pitches and shovel passes. He is physical enough to be a really good blocker at the tight end position. And outside of Zach Ertz, you think about the tight ends, at least the tight ends who I've grown up watching for this Eagles team. Chad Lewis, pass catcher and tight end. Brent Selleck, pass catcher and tight end. Dallas Goedert, pass catcher and tight end. And Goddard, there's a chance that he could come back. But I don't think that if he comes back, that should stop you from drafting a guy like Kenyon Sadiq. Do the Eagles move up to take a player like that? I don't think they do. But if he's there at 23 and they're going best player available, that's a very difficult player to pass up on, because Kenyon Sadiq, I think, is one of the better overall players in the upcoming 2026 NFL draft. Today's Philadelphia Eagles Now made possible thanks to our friends at Prize Picks. And look, the big game was almost here. There's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than with Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next year. So close the season out right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. Find your community on Prize Picks with the new social feeds feature. You can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy lineups you like or use them as inspiration for your own picks. You can even follow Prize Picks partners like us and tail or fade our picks with just one click. Join the millions of users. Sign up today for America's #1 sports picks app. 4-pick power play for the big game. Here's how it works. You can go 2 to 6 players on your lineup. Drake May, more on the passing touchdowns. Jackson Smith and Jigba, more on their receiving yards. Sam Darnold, more on the passing touchdowns. And then Stephon Diggs, more on the receiving yards. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. My man, Andrew Nathan. What is up, my man? Chase, if Lane Johnson retires, I think Howie should re-sign Mekhi Becton, if cut and pay Fred Johnson to be that bridge tackle while we develop the young, promising offensive line that we have on the roster. Your thoughts? I like that plan. Also, the Eagles have to figure out quickly, is Jeff Stoutland going to be here in 2026? Is he going to pair up with the new offensive coordinator? Those are valid questions, because Jeff Stoutland is also the run game coordinator. But also, does Drew Kendall have an opportunity to play center if the Eagles want to move off of Cam Jurgens? Could Landon Dickerson move to center? And Drew Kendall plays left guard? What happens with Cameron Williams, Miles Hinton, who you also drafted in the 6th round? How do those young, now rookies, look going into year 2? Because you used 3 picks on offensive linemen in that 6th round. Drew Kendall, a lot of experience at Boston College. Cam Williams, I thought if you returned to Texas, could have been a first-round pick this year. You could play him at guard or tackle. And then Miles Hinton, very experienced player at Stanford and at Michigan. And Jordan Mailata likes all of them. Now, as far as that plan post Lane Johnson, bringing back Fred Johnson on, say, a 1-year, $8 to $10 million contract to be that holdover right tackle, not a bad plan there. But if you can draft a plug-and-play right tackle to put there to be your bookend right tackle for the foreseeable future, I think that's a really good pathway and plan for the Eagles. Doing that and bringing back Fred Johnson could also be very wise, because if that offensive tackle flops, if that offensive tackle is not ready, if that offensive tackle can play guard right away, then you have Fred Johnson there as a little bit of a backup plan. So what makes Howie Roseman so good, he's always thinking about all these things. He's a very forward-thinking general manager, and hopefully we get word on Lane Johnson here soon, and hopefully he's back for another year in 2026 because, man, he's a stellar and special player. Lion Fighter, what would your luxury pick be in the upcoming NFL draft? It's a good question. I think Kenyon Sadiq would be an awesome selection for the Eagles. I think Caleb Downs, the safety, could be the next Malcolm Jenkins, Brian Dawkins type of safety, in the sense that he could be around this team for the next 10 years and be your Pro Bowl, all-pro caliber safety for a long time. So I'd say Kenyon Sadiq on offense, Caleb Downs on defense. Let me throw out another one. Vega Giovanni, the guard out of Penn State. You put him at right guard, he is a guy who can move mountains. And he's an absolute dog along the interior of your offensive line, who I think could elevate a guy like Cam Jurgens to his right or left, depending on if you play left guard or right guard. Bam. Do you think that we bring in a kicker? So the Jake Elliott situation is very interesting, and we've got some cap numbers that we can break down if the Eagles were to move off of Jake Elliott. Elliott's cap number in 2026 is $4.8 million. If the Eagles cut Jake Elliott, it's $10.9 million in dead money. That is $6 million lost to move on from Elliott. And I said this during our Cut Candidates video. If the Eagles had to eat $10.9 million in dead money to move off of a player at a more important position, I can see them doing it. Are they willing to eat that much dead money for a kicker? That's a lot of weight that's bringing you down from a cap perspective during an offseason in which you do not have a ton of cap space. So there are other more viable cap casualties that we could see for the Eagles. Michael Carter, Keely Ringo, Jacorian Bennett, Tyler Steen. All those players can open up some cash flow for Philadelphia. I just don't think Jake Elliott makes that much sense. I think they give him one more year. Now, do you bring in a UDFA during training camp to see what competition does for Jake Elliott because he hasn't had competition since 2017? Yeah, I would do that because competition brings the best out of anybody and everybody, and light a fire under his ass. Put some pressure on him. Still kind of young, too. Trey Losado, who do you got winning the Super Bowl? And if so, who do you think will be Super Bowl MVP? All right, so I think the Seattle Seahawks win the Super Bowl. Seattle right now looks like a wagon. And I'm not sure how this Patriots offensive line is going to block the Seahawks defensive line. Seattle is so good at the pass rusher spots and at defensive tackle, and the Patriots up front, not great. Also, Drake May has struggled throughout the playoffs. He has fumbled it in 3 games, 6 times, and he's thrown 2 interceptions. Ball security has been a big problem for him. What do the Seahawks do well? They'll stick to you like Velcro in coverage. They'll get after the quarterback. They're one of the best, if not the best, teams in the NFL at stopping the run, but they also generate a lot of takeaways. And I think Mike McDonald is a special defensive mind. So I just think that Seattle is better across the board for the most part. I think at coach, it's a wash, right? I love Mike Vrabel. I think he's fantastic. Doesn't call plays, by the way. If you're wondering what he does, if you have that same question about Nick Sirianni, both are CEO head coaches. You don't need to call plays to be an elite head coach. This is also the first time since that Patriots-Falcons Super Bowl, by the way, that two defensive-minded head coaches will face off in a Super Bowl. Dan Quinn, Bill Belichick, during that Patriots 28-3 comeback against Atlanta. The last time a defensive coach was the head coach for a team that made it to the Super Bowl, it was Bill Belichick in 2018. So some rarities there. Now, Drake May, second youngest quarterback to start in a Super Bowl behind only Dan Marino. And I think his time will come. But I think it's the Seahawks' time now. And when you get to this stage, when you have the better defense, I think usually that's the team that wins. Look at what happened last year with the Eagles over Kansas City. Look at when Patrick Mahomes lost his other Super Bowl, Tampa Bay. They were hunting him down all game long, like a dog trying to find a shot goose. I mean, it was crazy how much they were getting after Patrick Mahomes. That's how you take down really good quarterbacks, is when you're dominant up front. So give me Seattle, Super Bowl MVP. Let's continue the great story. Let's say Sam Darnold. Didn't work out with the Jets, didn't work out with the Panthers. Rehab year with the Niners, didn't play. Did make it to a Super Bowl then. Went to Minnesota, won 14 games. This year, won 14 games. I think he's the only quarterback ever to win 14 games in back-to-back years. And I think he shed the bad big game Sam Darnold label. So he's played well over the last month. And I think Sam Darnold will win Super Bowl MVP. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for nonstop daily coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles. Go Birds. And we'll catch you next time here on the show.